This nuclear-powered Leviathan wields enough ordnance to erase a sovereign nation. Suddenly, 5 Russian warships broke. What unfolded next shattered every doctrine in the tactical. Engage this because this engagement was scrubbed from the headlines. 0519 hours. The ambient hum of the radar room shifts. When the scopes reveal a nightmare scenario, 5 hostile contacts paint the screen at exactly 0. But here is the critical intelligence regarding advanced naval surveillance. The ANSPY can lock onto a target the size of a baseball from 200 miles out. And yet, these 5 materialized at a lethal range. That is not a... That is a Russian Admiral Gorshkov-class frigates, flanked by Udaloy-class destroyers, utilize advanced radar-absorbent and aggressive electronic warfare, engineered to mask their signature into the background noise, until they are positioned for the kill. Inside the Combat Information Center, operators watch the ghosts synchronizing within their formation spacing, mathematics holding spacing at 3.2 nautical miles, locked in tight, a maneuver requiring months of drill to execute. Speed holding 23, surging to 25. Commercial hulls don't generate. They are moving in absolute lockstep. Simultaneous throttle, synchronized across 16 miles. The bridge crew identifies the threat profile but the Russian task force's next move would force a command decision that only 3 carrier have had to execute in the radio silence. 0 response. The silence is the loudest signal on the spectrum. Protocol mandates any warship inside the 12-mile limit must acknowledge bridge to bridge. George Washington broadcasting on Channel 16. International distress and calling frequency. The Global Guard channel. Everyone hears English first. Crisp. Professional. Then Russian. High level via a specialist stationed on the bridge for this. Static. Here is the tactical reality of now under the 1907 on international regulations for preventing collisions at sea, known as COLREGs, vessels are required to signal intent. When the risk of collision becomes imminent at 18 nautical miles with rapid closing, that hostile intent is legally established. The moment they refuse to respond, the Russian formation isn't just maintaining, they're making a calculated. They do not recognize the carrier's authority to dictate we saw this exact tactical playbook back in 2016, when Russian destroyers hard-shadowed the USS Ronald Reagan. Deep in the Sea of Japan, range drops to 16 miles. On the surface plot, those 5 contacts execute a maneuver that shifts their braking formation, each vessel adjusting course, precision, initiating a protocol, naval tactician, an arc interception pattern. The geometry of total control, demonstrating how 5 ships choke out a range. 14. The Russian formation locks into its spread. Lead ship holds the center. Units 2 and break outward. 3, 5 degrees. Units 4 and 5 extend the flanks. From a satellite view, they've formed a shallow crescent. 12 with the USS George Washington's projected track running dead center into the trap. This isn't random. This is textbook Russian Navy, straight from the pages of their fundamental. It dictates arc formations for total air, achieving dominance without direct confrontation. But the physics remain unforgiving. The mathematics are brutal in their simplicity. A Nimitz-class carrier, 1,092 feet, with a turning radius of approximately 2,100 feet at standard flanks. The Russian battle group has positioned itself precisely inside that. If the carrier breaks course now, she vectors directly toward a flanking hostile, effectively surrendering control of the course. If she maintains she threads the needle within 3 nautical of all 5 contacts. Danger clear. At that proximity, a single miscalculation. Electro-optical sensors locked. Range collapsing below 10 miles. So, here, if you were the skipper on responsible for 5,000 souls, do you turn to de-escalate, or do you hold the line and risk it, betting your life that they blink first? The closest point of approach, where strategy dissolves into mere geometry. Naval computers calculate this as CPA. Closest point of approach, a real-time tactical solution factoring velocity, heading, wind, drift current, and the turn radius of both warships. Tracking the USS versus the lead Russian destroyer. Initial CPA reading, 4.3 nautical miles, 26,000 feet of separation. It looks safe on paper until you realize the physics of the engagement. At a combined closure rate of 50 knots, that kill box collapses in under 5 minutes. The tactical plot updates every pulsing on the bridge display. 4.3 drops to 4.1, then 3.9. Every digit marks thousands of feet of open ocean, vanishing between mountain size. Mark 3.8 miles. Hostile contact surges. Nothing, a 2-knot spike. 25 to 27. That acceleration is a probe to test the carrier's waiting for a flinch in the equation. We hold our course. OD reports bearing drift. Contact 3. Russian destroyer. Starboard hard rudder. 5 degrees inward. They are collapsing the corridor. The carrier threads the needle through a choke point, constricted by half a mile. Yet, she maintains velocity. 0 deviation and blind to the geometric kill box closing in around her. The weapon they didn't anticipate. How intelligence neutralizes aggression. 2.9 nautical miles. An MH. 60R Seahawk. Lifts from the no scramble, no panic, just a calculated ascent into a standard patrol vector. But here is the tactical shift that rewrites the entire engagement. Locked under the fuselage is the AAS, capable of dissecting heat signals from 15 miles out. Every Russian hull is now being logged. Thermal imaging exposing power output, throttle settings, and confirming energized weapon battery. Via heat balloon, the bird also deploys the ANAL down by E electronic support measures suite, mapping every radar spike, radio frequency, and data link chatter within a 50-mile radius. This isn't mere surveillance. Every frame of intel seized by that is hardlined straight into the black box, time-stamped, irrefutable. But there is a secondary variable. The instant that Hilo locked its Russian tactical cohesion began to fracture. A hostile vessel drifts. 2 degrees, a sloppy correction at 2.5 nautical miles out. The Russian flagship drops speed. 1 knot. The blockade is crumbling, not by kinetic force, but because the carrier projected a deterrent far deadlier than the doctrine of absolute restraint. Why hold fast was the only option on the board. It is a foundational axiom, the resolute bearing. You maintain your vector, regardless of pressure. It sounds, but it is written in the blood of Cold War stand, where the first captain surrendered dominance for a generation. 1988. Executes a deliberate ramming maneuver, an attempt to bully her from the Black Sea. Yorktown held her line. She took the hit. She drove forward. That command decision forged an ironclad precedent. United States carriers never yield the right of way. The captain of the George Washington understands because every carrier analyzes these tactical precedents before assuming the con. Flanking away from the Russian formation validates that their coordinated pressure tactic. It invites identical every time a U.S. carrier transits in on the periphery of Russian operating zone at range 1.9 nautical mile. The Russian cordon is visibly fracturing. Vessels synchronized mere minutes ago. Break formation. Independent maneuvering. Interval. They are bleeding off the intercept geometry. The blockade didn't collapse due to superior or advanced tech in your own battles. When have you held the line against? Did the chaos resolve because you refused to blink or because you sought a The aftermath is written in deck logs, not headlines. 0540. Surface radar tracks 5 Russian trailing distance, 8 nautical vectors parallel. Collision course. They remain on station. Watch, but they no longer command the sea. The engagement ends not with a cinematic explosion, but with the cold finality of a log entry. Multiple contacts tracking. Safe separation. No deviation from mission. That single entry, time-stamped and digitally encrypted, cements the definitive tactical record. And that log carries more weight than any civilian broad. Maritime encounters aren't judged by optics, but by cold, hard telemetry. Negative. Did the hostiles breach call rate? Negative. Was weapons release authorized? Negative. According, this was nothing more than a routine transit, but inside every ops, analyzing this feed, the tactical takeaway is absolute. The bird, after 47 minutes on its sensor packages already uplinked to Fleet Command. That intelligence is far more than any breaking news, because the next time these assets soar, U.S. commanders will have their maneuver profiles memorized. We know their comms frequency and exactly where their discipline fractures. The USS George Washington pressed the mission, maintaining heading. No shots fired. 5 Russian bogies faded astern. Their blockade attempt logged, then disregarded. Out here, power isn't measured by the loudest posture, but by the unyielding momentum. Subscribe for the declassified briefings that never make the evening.